Welcome, everybody, to the Seattle Sports Union podcast. My name is Abraham DeWeese, and I'm back again with the Savage Nathan. Nathan Savage. How's it going, Nathan?
Good, good. I mean, huge win. Things are kind of just as a whole up in Seattle right now. Some things are happening down there in Soto. That's pretty exciting. So,
You
um,
talking about you talking about huge win for the Seahawks last week, or huge win for the Mariners yesterday,
all of the above.
or
Yeah, it's just a
okay?
good time to be a Seattle sports fan. Kraken look like they got a new jersey that I'm liking a lot as well. Some of
Oh,
the
that
Seahawks
black one's
players had
really
it. Yeah,
that black one's
yeah.
really
So,
awesome.
yeah, good time to be
Hey,
a Seattle fan.
you bet. And you're talking about jerseys. The Saints are going to debut their Color Rush white helmets. I'm not a fan. I think the Saints have one of the most classic jerseys, like one of the actual more beautiful helmets, and they're messing with it. And I will not sit on my porch drinking my country time lemonade and stand by this. I will not let them buy it.
Yeah, for me, it reminds me a little bit as I feel like at prom or homecoming, whatever, everyone would start wearing all black suits. And then it would be the hipsters would come out and they'd wear all white suits. And all white would be the trend. And then it'd go back. I feel like the NFL, had their black phase for a little bit. Now it's all white. And we'll see. I do actually think on the football field itself, that usually it's not really white anymore. It's white with green smudges all over it. So I feel like they're a nice before the game locker room jersey, a good debuting before the season, maybe a preseason jersey, but yeah, they get pretty they get pretty destroyed during the game, it seems.
And I get it. You got to sell merch, but like classic teams, it bugs me when classic teams. There's this monstrosity when the Green Bay Packers wore some sort of weird shirt with a great big oval on their chest, and like the colors were all off, and it just there's a reason why they left those uniforms in the past. Keep
Yeah.
keep your classic Green Bay ones. Anyway, let's talk about the actual game here. Enough complaining about that. And you some might bring up the hypocrisy of me wearing a black Huskies jersey today, but it's the only clean one I have, people. Anyway, so okay, let's get into the game tomorrow. It's going to be Seahawks hosting this New Orleans Saints. 1 o'clock, 1 o'clock game, which I think means it's not the national game. I'm sure the Cowboys game is the national game, but that's fine. That means we don't get the for those of you listening on TV or watching on TV, we'll probably have better broadcasters than we're used to used to experiencing. So I'm excited about that. 1 o'clock kickoff. I'm excited about that. We got a Monday night coming up, a Thursday night coming up, and Nathan, it just knocks me out of it when I don't have my habitual like 1 o'clock, 1:25 game.
Yeah.
Just throws my whole day off. Last week the 10 a.m. start. Woke up, almost forgot there was a game on.
Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, the big one, this is every game's a big game, and as they're coming in, it reminds me a little bit of like that Giants game last year where there was all this momentum
Mm-hmm.
coming into the game, coming off a big win, and then they kind of fell flat on their face. So definitely take this game seriously, but this kind of combo of Saints on Sunday, Cardinals on Thursday, this is kind of an area of the schedule I marked. I kind of circled a little bit. I think this will define the team, these
I am
back-to-back games like this, and it's going to make a big deal. I mean, this Saints game, if they lose this game, they drop 16 percentage points on their playoff odds. So
I am
let's start
I,
with the Saints game.
I'm so glad you brought up that Giants game. That's one where when you tie the Rams at the end of the year and you lose on tiebreakers, you wouldn't have been in that mess if you just finished off the team you're supposed to finish off in the Giants. And that would be this kind of game right now, where if you look at the paper, the stats and whatnot, and the talent, if you just line them up 1 through 6 or 1 through 53 on both sides, the Seahawks have the edge. You line up the coaches, it seems like the Seahawks have the edge. But you're right, Nathan. It's games like this that when you don't take care of business, that knock you out of the playoffs. It's not the games against the superior teams that keep you out of the playoffs. You're supposed to lose those, but you got to win the ones you're supposed to win. And I really kick myself as a fan, and I'm sure every other Seahawks fan does, for not not seeing our boys finish it off against the Giants last year.
Yeah, I think that's where it felt to me a lot of the hype kind of faded away right there. And at the end of the year, yeah, they picked it up, but it's just The margins are so thin right now in the NFL. I mean, even in our division, everyone's looking good. Is everyone 2-0 except for the Seahawks in the division, I think?
I think the Cards lost. I think the Cards lost last week.
Oh, they did. So, regardless, just everyone is like such a solid team in the NFL. I actually get sometimes upset when they say, "Oh, does that Alabama dynasty beat like a Titans team or a Saints team?" It's like, no, it's not even close. These are all the All-Americans here playing, and so even if we on paper say, I think coming into the season, this Saints game, the before the season, preseason, the Seahawks had the best odds of winning this game. That doesn't matter at all once the game starts on Sunday, as we saw last year against the Giants, and I'm pretty excited coming off this big win against the Steelers, but that's the way sports work. And that's the way the NFL works is all that excitement is in the rearview mirror now, and they got to win tomorrow. So that's the key.
Well, that's a very good point that you bring up. Everybody in the NFL was a super duper star on their team in college. You look at Spencer Rattler, who's going to be the quarterback on Sunday. He was a super duper star at Oklahoma and South Carolina. Wait a minute, correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't he get replaced by somebody at Oklahoma? Was it Jalen Hurts?
I don't know his story too well.
Okay. Anyway,
Just watching him in the NFL, he's one of those guys who he doesn't get a lot of attention. Daniel Jones is blowing up in Indy, so but something kind of like a Daniel Jones for me. Again, very similar to that Giants team with Daniel Jones that beat us last year, where yeah, I don't think he'll win you very many games, but if the opportunities are available on the field, he will make plays.
yeah,
He'll run the ball, he'll make plays, and you have to shut those holes down against a guy like him because he's not your rookie quarterback that no matter how many holes there are, he's going to overthrow them or miss like a JJ McCarthy. He is a solid starter, in my opinion, in the NFL. And we sometimes overlook guys like this just because they're not one of the top quarterbacks. But again, he's a top 20, top 25 player in the world at his position. That's still a very legit football player. And we have to be very, for me, I feel like these guys, I sometimes get more nervous about when the Seahawks play them because it seems like a couple holes open up and they take advantage and start some big drives.
yeah. They take a few risks that other quarterbacks wouldn't, and it can bite you in the back end. One other thing too is I believe Kellen Moore, the coach, is now with New Orleans, and we know that he did some good stuff with the Cowboys, helping them get to street. Was it three straight 12-win seasons?
I think so, and right, he won the Super Bowl with Philly last year as well, right? I'm pretty sure.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
and so this guy's got the ability to help guys like Dak Prescott and Jalen Hurts out. I'm sure he's got the ability to help out Spencer Rattler as well. So we do need to watch out. Now let's take a look at the quarterback on the other side. Sam Darnold, the man who makes you wince, the man
Yeah.
who took Geno Smith from your precious Seahawks. Um,
Yeah.
actually looked a lot better last week. Do you have any insights as to what was different from week one to week two, and can that carry into the game tomorrow against the Saints?
Well, one thing that's going on with the Seahawks right now is they're facing the most stacked boxes in the NFL. Facing them. They have Walker has faced the most eight-man boxes of any running back in the NFL. So it seems like teams are a
So
little bit
just a
daring Darnold to
one
beat
one
them.
second there, just for the
Yeah.
clarification for the uninitiated. That means that the defenses are bringing the safeties up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So that
safety's
means
up, doing
harder to
whatever.
run.
Linebackers are up, moving up very quickly, not dropping back as often into coverage or things like that. So, yeah, the box is very stacked.
So
The
often,
line of scrimmage is pretty clogged up.
so often there's more defenders than there are offensive blockers. So I'm sorry to sidebar there. I just want to make sure everybody understands that concept.
Yeah. So that's going to be a big one for me as well. Is this as this season goes on? I didn't like the interceptions that Darnold threw, but again, 2 weeks in, he is looking better. I want to see the Seahawks continue to force defenses out of that eight-man box. If they're going to show up with that eight-man box, bring everyone up, try to prevent the run, I want to see Darnold continue to just shred those type of defenses and, make coaches pay for underestimating him. And I do think definitely last week, he made a couple mistakes, but overall the field seemed to open up a lot more. And I'm sure the Steelers were forced to revisit kind of their defense at times because he was just shredding them apart during parts of the game, especially that I really like that 40-yard pass over the top to JSN, got the tight ends involved. I'm liking the progression, the offensive going. I would say the star of the show for me for that game was Kubiak. It just seemed like the defense was really threatening so many parts of what the Steelers were trying to do, and they just couldn't cover all the gaps. And I thought that was really good scheming by Kubiak.
Yeah, I really liked how it opened up. From the first week, it seemed like Darnold was not taking chances. And yes, you're going to get interceptions when you take chances. But the thing is, you have to throw it to someone other than JSN. And we saw that. We saw Elijah Arroyo get in the mix, AJ Barner get in the mix. We saw Cup and Horton getting in the mix. And it's tough to count on rookies and second year players like, Barner and Arroyo, Horton. But this is the team you have, right, Nathan? You just got to go with it.
Yeah, and I think hopefully Bobo will come back pretty soon here. I mean, he that was a scary head injury he suffered in the preseason, but I think he'll bring some veteran presence back. And then I really like, I've been also not the biggest fan of Cooper Cup, but that looked a little bit like a throwback Cooper Cup game. And he's had some pretty good years in the Pacific Northwest, just like, Kellen Moore coming back in the Pacific Northwest
Boise
has had,
State.
yeah, has done pretty well here too. But it's nice to see some light there. And I don't want to take anything away from the victory. That is a huge victory to go into Pittsburgh and beat the Steelers. They're going to probably be in the playoffs again this year, like every year. And yeah, just unreal. Offensive wise, I still think they're playing second fiddle to the defense, but I'm totally okay with that. I like that in the Pacific Northwest to have just this amazing defense. And then for me, again, another big star of the show. Last year, the special teams was second worst in the NFL,
Hmm.
rated second worst. Already they're like second best in the NFL, had that big touchdown. In my opinion, that's what closed the door on the game. Yeah, it was a little bit of a mistake by Pittsburgh, but that, hey, 7 points is 7 points, and you win a lot of games if you get 7 points out of special teams. So yeah, awesome. Awesome to see the nepotism of Harbaugh is maybe paying off a little bit there.
That's the good news. The bad news is Julian Love, Nick Minwari, Witherspoon. I was going to say Reese Witherspoon. That's not right. Devin Witherspoon and Charbonnet, all doubtful. That's a lot of big names to not have for this
Yeah.
upcoming game, especially on defense. Do you think this impacts what we can do, or are you not worried about it as the Saints are not the top line team in the NFL?
Yeah, so I wouldn't have been as worried about it just how well they played last week, but just the love. The love is the one area, like love being injured is the one area having a little bit of pause. I remember with the Legion of Boom days when a safety went out, it really seemed to impact a lot of holes would open up on the defense when either Thomas was out, Chancellor was out. I think it's underrated how Julian Love can really let guys like Woolen, Job is maybe the best corner in the NFL the first 2 weeks of the season. How he lets those guys play very physical and very close to the wide receivers because they know they have this safety valve over the top or over the middle. And I am actually pretty nervous. Emin and Love being out. We didn't have a lot of safety depth, I don't think, going in the season. I'm very curious how that's going to look because there's some speedsters like Rashid Shaheed, I think his name is.
Hmm.
He's incredibly fast. Will take the top off your defense. He's had some breakout games in the past. I'm a little bit nervous about them exposing some things over the top with the backups, but as a whole, I think this Saints, offense is a little bit suspect, and I think our pressure is what will win us that game. What'll take some of the pressure off of our. If we can keep getting four-man pressure as we have, like I think we're the best in the NFL right now in terms of pressure with four men rushing the quarterback. If that can continue, then I don't think I think Rattler's going to get very rattled, and the corners are not going to be forced to play the type of game where they have to do everything. And I think the pressure, actually, the front seven is what's going to relieve things for our back end.
Right on. So the Saints, with their youth movement, let's just call it that, they're kind of a cautionary tale, right, of managing your money because they completely botched a couple of years ago how their contract situations were, and with the hard salary cap in the NFL, they've had to purge their entire team, and they're going into the what is it, the third year of the purge. They might see their superstar running back Kamara get traded if they don't start winning some games, right?
Yeah. It's just again, I respect it. They went all in, and to be honest, I think they should have won a Super Bowl. That call, I think it was the Rams game where there was the blatant pass interference and
Yeah,
they didn't call it, or the Minnesota Miracle where Stephon Diggs gets that ball over the top. I think those teams were winning Super Bowls probably, or those were real threat. Those teams were real threats to win Super Bowls. They went all in, and now they're kind of paying the consequences of going for the immediate gratification instead of, as Depoto likes to say, the 54% consistency over time. But I think it's worth it for them to go all in. I think they made some major mistakes signing guys like Derek Carr and should have
yeah,
just accepted the tank. I do think you are right. This is a young roster. This is probably a less talented roster, but those young guys are super hungry. And I'm sure they're going to get very hyped up to play in Seattle. So
that's
again, we're
just.
huge favorites coming in, but that doesn't mean anything once the first whistle goes and the ball gets kicked off.
And one thing you got to think about is the we all thought that the Seahawks were not very talented. Uh, what would that be? 2011, I want to say they had some sort of undrafted free agent as their wide receiver. Then they had a converted wide receiver that's now a cornerback playing cornerback. How
Yeah.
are you gonna How are you gonna win with that? Some midget quarterback who's too short.
Cast off from the Bills. Bills didn't want their running back.
That's right. People forget that Marshawn Lynch had a gun charge against him,
Yeah.
and yeah, was hustled out of there very quickly because he was considered added weight. They thought they had better options available for them. So who knows with the Saints? I mean, that could be true. Like we're on our own team right now. Josh Jobe was a throwaway, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And out of the University of Miami, he was not even considered like the best cornerback on his team at Miami. And here he is doing very, very well. Sometimes it clicks a little bit later. Sometimes it just takes different coaching. Or with McDonald, I think what we've seen is just putting people in the right place to use what they have, right?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like McDonald is like he's acing, he's 110% for me so far on the will he be able to bring what he did in Baltimore to the Seahawks. It just feels like no matter who they throw out there, like exactly like you're saying with Job, completely out of nowhere. He has to step up a little bit because of Emin Ward getting injured, the Woolen situation as well. He's given up a 0% passer rating when he's been thrown to this season. Like just unreal. I think, obviously credit to Job for being able to step up, but I think that's why you bring in these elite coaches like this. That's why you really, really value in my opinion, I think coaching is almost important as the drafting, or maybe even more important as the drafting, because that's how undrafted free agents all of a sudden become superstars. I think so much of it is coaching and putting their players in the right position to succeed. And I'm loving our defense. I think our defense will keep us in basically every game this year. I think against the Steelers, who looked really good the week before, they made them look pretty pedestrian. They made Aaron Rodgers look pretty old. They made DK look like he was definitely not worth the salary that the Steelers gave him. Just I cannot be more happy about what McDonald has done for this defense.
Well, let's talk about coaches. We have a coach who I believe, correct me if I am getting this wrong, you regarded Clint Kubiak as the best available option for the Seahawks as an offensive coordinator last year. It wasn't so much that you had him as the next coming of Mike Holmgren, but rather it was take a look at this guy. I mean, the other options aren't all that great. Ryan Grubb
Yeah,
wasn't all that great.
yeah. No, I think the NFL is so much about trees. I was making a joke about nepotism that we have a Harbaugh coaching special teams, but I'm sure this offseason, when his special teams was one of the worst in the NFL, who does he have to go talk to? Oh, he has, his uncle is just won the national championship with Miami and is coaching in Chargers and looking very successful. Oh, his dad is one of the best coaches of our era. I'm sure cares a lot about special teams. That's who he has to go talk to about the game in order to improve. And I think with Kubiak as well, coming out of this system, Shanahan system, his dad was also a very successful coach for a long time. Those guys in my opinion, are going to consistently keep getting better. They're going to consistently have the elite of the elite to go talk to in the offseason, to go, you know, to scheme things up, to make new ideas for how they want to drive the ball in the NFL. I think just one huge part for me that's like a microcosm of how good Kubiak is done is just watching. If you go watch Robbie Oots tape
Hmm.
from last game,
Okay.
it is just unreal what it's like to have a fullback just wrecking the opposing defense and giving space for Charbonnet and Walker to just get that one extra guy that they don't have to worry about, that those 3 or 4 extra steps to build up to full speed so they can make a move on a safety or a linebacker stepping up. And yeah, I'm really liking the scheme. We'll see what that Steelers defense ends up looking like. They've given up a lot of points to start the season, but I feel like for me, beating Pittsburgh and beating them in the way that they did, kind of running them over, that doesn't happen very often. So a lot went right in that game on offense.
So one name you did not bring up from Clint Kubiak is his father, Gary
Yeah.
Kubiak, uh, as not just as the coach of Houston, but a three-time Super Bowl participant as a backup quarterback.
Yeah.
So so you did bring him up as a coach. I just want to throw
Yeah.
out there that yeah, it it's always baffling to me, like, to be the backup to the guy, to the great. Well, can I put Elway in the conversation for one of the greatest of all time?
Well, yeah. I grew
Okay,
up,
fair enough.
I had Elway
Yeah,
posters on my wall when I was growing up. Terrell Davis, like, yeah, that was the dynasty when I was growing up.
and I just think about guys like that. I'm like, how much did they learn, behind these greatest of all times? And they often tend to be, some of the best coaches, because they've had the chance to see the greatest, and what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, and I think also, like we see it with Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota.
Mhm.
I think he was a backup to Brady or other examples. I think very often guys like Brady, Elway, from what I've heard, they also like to keep those guys around, not because they're going to be a great quarterback once they're on the field. Maybe in some weird way, those competitive guys, they like having them not being the best arm strength, not being the best throwers of the football, but their
Mhm.
minds supposedly are just unreal. And that's why they like to keep them on the team. And I think
It's like having.
sometimes, I would rather have Tyronn Lue as my coach than Kobe Bryant because maybe Kobe Bryant is going to say, "Oh, why don't you just do a 360 dunk here?" That's what I did. And that's just not how it's going to be in the NFL. John Elway might say, "Oh, just run for 30 yards, break a couple tackles, you'll be fine." But guys like Kubiak, Kevin O'Connell, they had to say, "Well, it was my brain that had to win games for me or make the right plays for me." And that's what you want as a coach. They're not going to be making plays out on the field anymore. You want that brain. So, yeah, I hope things continue very well with Kubiak. I like the tree that he came from. It felt like whenever we'd play the Texans, Arian Foster would run for like 200 yards on the Legion of
Yeah.
Boom. Like they know how to get the ball going on the ground. And I like a ground game, a defense ground game with McDonald and in Seattle. I'm just a big fan if they can get that going.
So when we look at a play, we did this last week. We'll do it again. When we look at a player that needs to come up big, can you give me one on offense? One that you wouldn't expect. We know that JSN is going to come up big. So do you have a particular
Yeah,
player that?
well, that's exactly what I was going to talk about. I think more and more as JSN puts up these, 100-yard games, teams
Mhm.
are going to start scheming for it. Teams are
Yeah.
going to start to say, "Hey, can Cooper Cup beat me? Hey, can Horton beat me? Can some of these guys, Arroyo, I still think as this season is going on, as much as I wasn't a fan of Cooper Cup coming in, I'm hearing Cooper Cup's now in the coach's room for the QB, kind of going through the week for the QB room. He's in there. That's almost unheard of, but they have a wide receiver in there helping the coaches out, helping the quarterbacks out. He was like, I think, top 5 graded run blocker last week. I don't even care if he gets another 90-yard game again this season. It sounds like an identity of our offense is Cooper Cup, the way he run blocks, the way he thinks about the game. And I just want to see that continue. I want to hear, oh man, when we run it to Cooper Cup's side, like things open up, or he got JSN open by showing him a different way to run the route or things like that. So I really have Cooper Cup circled right now. I almost feel like when he is on, the Seahawks offense is going to be on. I think again after last week, something changes when Cooper Cup is involved in the game for the Seahawks. So
Gotcha.
I'd say
Gotcha.
him. Yeah.
I love that. I love to hear that. What I'm utterly fascinated by is the AJ Barner Elijah Arroyo pairing. I know the Seahawks. It's been a long time since we've had a tight end that's the total package, and maybe in today's NFL there's just a couple. And that's it. But maybe we can make this work with two guys. And I'm excited that it seems like both of them get their opportunities on the block, both get the opportunities in the air. Arroyo obviously grades out as a much better receiver. Barner grades out as a much better blocker, but they're both willing to take on the other part of their responsibility as well. And I'm excited to see that in last week's game, the checkdowns to the tight ends were available and Sam Darnold could see them and the receivers were in the right positions. So if they can get that going as well, I think that's going to help. That's going to go a far way for us.
Yeah, I agree. Like if the linebackers are stepping up, they're looking straight at the running back, then you got to leak those tight ends out and you have to make them pay. If they're going to keep their eyes in the backfield, then the tight ends have got to just walk all over those linebackers. So I'm excited actually. I really like the way things look last week and we beat a very good coach and a usually very well coached team at their home. So yeah, just as good as it gets basically last week.
All right, we're getting towards the end of the show here. Do you have any final thoughts?
I just think the big one for me is will is potentially is the reason McDonald held some of these guys out in the secondary because he does have Thursday. I know you're not supposed to do that, but it's the quick transition Sunday to Thursday, and it's a big game against the Cardinals. So maybe some of those guys would have played if they had a full rest week next week. So I'm hoping after Sunday, win or lose, we hear, oh, maybe Love is going to play, or Emin Wari, or maybe he's looking good, or Witherspoon can come in. Like I'm hoping they were careful with the injuries because it's such a short turnaround, and some of those guys can appear in the following week because there's yeah, this is quick in the NFL. There's a big game Sunday, and immediately on Thursday they play again. So we're gonna learn a lot about the team in the next like 10 days.
Right on. Excellent. All right, let's do our predictions. I'll go ahead and get this started. I think that the Seahawks win this one, and I do want to throw this out there. I don't think it's going to be that easy, in the respect that we saw it last year with the Giants. They took the game for granted. If McDonald hasn't learned his lesson, the same thing's going to happen. So let's check and see if McDonald can get these guys up for even the game like this. So I'm just going to give it like a 27-17 uh, Seahawks winning score.
Yeah, their record at home has actually been really bad. I can't remember the numbers, but it was shocking to see. So they need to, protect their house here. I do think they're going to win, but I agree with you. I think it's going to be kind of a grind it out. It sounds like the weather actually might be kind of nice in Seattle, but I'm going to say 21-17 Seahawks, and it's going to be one of those grinded out games.
Awesome. All right, let's do our shout outs to end the show here. I'm going to do a shout out for my son Vincent, who he and I went to the Bananas last night. Savannah Bananas were an amazing show. It was a loud, raucous occasion. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot, and I enjoyed being there with my son. Who would you like to give a shout out to, Nathan?
I'd like to give a shout out to Dan Wilson. He made a just unreal challenge where, the edge of a defender's cleat was on the grass against the Royals, called it out. They called the shift call. Runner got first base when he'd been thrown out. They hit a double after that. He scored a huge run to help them win the game. He's talked about resting some players as well. Munoz, all year long, he's kept him in his exact spot, not overthrowing him. Now he's primed for the playoff push. I'm really liking the coaching that Dan Wilson has done for this team, and am excited for a little bit of a push here towards the postseason.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us on the Seattle Sports Union podcast. We enjoy having you guys here. Leave a note down below. Click like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Check us out on Seattle Sports Union on YouTube, as well. Check us out on Spotify, and check out our website, seattlesportsunion.com. And on behalf of Nathan Savage and myself, Abraham Lewis, we'll see you guys next time.
Go Hawks.